Nearly a third of Gen Z, those born between the years 1997 and 2012, say they're not only fine with, but actually support the government installing surveillance cameras into your homes. Now, obviously, the George Orwell 1984 comparisons are super overdone at this point, but that is literally how the book goes. From censored speech to people being made to believe the opposite of what they thought was true only yesterday, to kids being propagandized to turn against their parents, to now having cameras inside your home through which the government can keep an eye on you. Word for word, plot point for plot point, we are reading Orwell's warning against totalitarian states as if it was a how-to manual on what to do instead of what not to do. Now, as for the poll, it was conducted by the Cato Institute, sampling over 2,000 Americans. The way the question was phrased is that respondents were asked if the government installing surveillance cameras in every household to reduce domestic violence, abuse, and other illegal activity was something they would support or not. 29% of those under the age of 30 agreed. 20% of those aged between 30 and 44 years old also agreed. While overall, taking all demographics into account, 75% of people are opposed to the idea. That's not a very encouraging sign either. That number should be as close to 100% as statistics can allow for. The other 25% of people either agreed with the surveillance or said they weren't sure about it, which, come on, when the feds are saying they want to wire your house, which they covertly already kind of do, how are you going to sit there and think to yourself, gee whiz, I'm torn on the offer? It's madness. And isn't it comforting to know that these are the kinds of people who could cancel out your vote at the ballot box? So now I have to ask about the problem at the root of these results, which is, what is a nation and what is the relation of civilians to the state supposed to be? Now, traditionally, the thinking would go something like this. We are educated and independent, godly men capable of self-government, who come together at various levels of cooperation we call a government, whether it be local, state, or federal, in order to officially codify the rules and principles we already live by, and to work together on issues that would be out of our power to handle individually. Now, of course, power corrupts, so this basic outline has never really gone entirely to plan. Not even in the earliest days of our republic. Just ask the Shayshites and their rebellion against Western Massachusetts beginning in 1786 for trying to unfairly shake down farmers who left to fight in the Revolutionary War, milking them, the government did, for every penny they had left to their name to fund the debts of wealthier New England elite classes making money off their backs through inflationary means. But I digress. The point is, for decades now, we've been raised with the idea that all you see in America is basically the property of Uncle Sam. He is akin to a landlord who magnanimously allows you and I to rent out property that we call our home or our land. And while in name it's ours and by deed and by the coin used to purchase it, we can say that it's ours and that we have property rights to it, but it's still viewed as not being completely ours because the government could seize it if they wanted to. We were supposed to have strong rights so that the government couldn't just do that willy-nilly because, again, it's supposed to be ours, not theirs. But again, we're supposed to be sovereigns in our own lands, kings of our castles, but now that understanding has faded and those protections along with it. Just look at how deferential courts and law enforcement now are to squatters illegally living inside someone's home. So only by thinking of the nation in this way does grievance culture and the welfare state work, in which one person can say, I want what that guy over there has because I'm owed it for one reason or another. And the federal government can acquiesce to those demands and tax that guy to death to redistribute his earnings because he's seen as just a tenant anyways and can have his rates change. See how that works to undermine overall our rights and sovereignty with enough time. And now young people growing up in daycares and government schools where their every move is monitored, spending all their free time online where the joke is that the FBI has an agent assigned to watch you from the other side of the camera all day, and who are raised to live very libertine and licentious or socially liberal lives, which destroys strong families and therefore necessitates larger government meddling in everyday affairs. You now have a recipe for why that Cato poll came out the way it did. But then, just to show that young people are not being raised with a coherent worldview either, they're also the generation most apt to agree with the CEO of Lululemon, who's now doubling down on the decision to fire 2 employees in Georgia, who called the police and tried to intervene with robbers who had targeted their specific location multiple times in the past. Calvin McDonald is quoted as saying, "It's only merchandise, and we have a zero-tolerance policy that we train our educators on around engaging during a theft," end quote.